All right, so I just want to talk about Smile real quick. Again, late to the fucking party, and I'm sure if I put this on like a week ago, people would actually give a fuck about it. But like, let's just when I see the movie. So you either, you come here for an opinion or you don't. Um, Smile, directed by Parker Finn. I was familiar with his short film, which I didn't realize until they said that one of his short films were on Alter, and I watch Alter all the time. I think there's some great short films, great direction from the filmmakers on Alter. Also, Dust is affiliated with them, or Dust is the second channel, and they have some great work too. I actually prefer Alter though. I feel like there's some better direction going on Alter, so I'm not surprised that filmmakers are starting to come out of their of things that have been showcased on their channel. One of my favorites is the short film. I believe it's called Piggy. I hope I'm not getting that wrong because it is one of my favorites. And I believe the filmmaker is also getting a feature film. Possibly based on that, I can't remember. But let's just get into Smile. Was it good? Yeah, it was good. I mean, especially for a first film, you get a feature film if you're a filmmaker, you get a feature film off the ground. It's a big accomplishment. And not only if you get a feature film off the ground, but if it's number one over the weekend, that's obviously another great sign. So, horror films right now are dominating the box office as far as, what is number one. Again, Barbarian, I believe, debuted at number one. I was hoping for Pearl. Oh no! Pearl came out with The Woman King. Barbarian was a week before, and I believe that was number one. Then Pearl debuted at number three, but it was off the charts, I believe, this week as far as the top 10. So that sucks. And then Smile, this previous weekend. So the directing was good. It was solid. A lot of sound design choices that kept you interested in the film, especially in the cinema. I thought that as everyone's saying, because I have listened to other reviews, that the jump scares are very good, which they are. The jump scares are good, and they're kind of uniquely placed in the film. So Parker Finn, he came to the plate. He did a pretty good job. I don't think he hit it out of the park in any sense of the imagination. But it was certainly, enough to ensure, being able to make another film, which, is probably the number one thing that you would want from a film, is to be able to make another one, and continue the career, so it's very, very important. And they did a good job. I guess the marketing was okay. There was like people smiling behind home plate, during baseball games. Certainly you can attribute some of the success, I think, to that marketing campaign. It wasn't unique. I don't know. I've seen kind of like, marketing campaigns in a similar fashion. I thought it was a little disrespectful to the game of baseball, to be honest with you, just to fucking buy a seat and have somebody sit there or stand there smiling. It's kind of disrespectful to the game, but whatever. It is what it is, and I got some attention on social media and stuff like that, and perhaps that was some of the success of the film. I would be surprised if it was certainly the number one thing that brought people in there. But let's talk about the film itself. So, as again, I said, the filmmaking is good. I mean, the pacing is pretty good. It's a solid film. Certainly, there's some really good, solid performances in the film. The lead actress, I thought, really carried it very well. Kept you interested for the whole time. I thought some of the writing, which didn't really hit at some points. At other points, it was really strong. I thought there was some really strong performances in writing, in particular scenes that is obviously a great sign for the future of this filmmaker. But the thing is this: like at first, I'm like, wow, this is a pretty pretty interesting kind of exploration into mental illness. I mean, is that what this filmmaker is kind of going for? This kind of like woman under the influence esque kind of film that's disguised as a horror film. I think is I think that's a really cool idea. I mean, you can certainly get away with exploring mental illness in that way and make it effective. And the first half of the film, which kind of focused on that, I thought was successful. And I was like, wow, is this, this filmmaker is really designing something special. But then it goes into like this detective story where, the main character is trying to figure out, like, I don't know what the problem is, I don't know what she's trying to figure out. Like, she's like, oh, this person died, that person died, this person committed suicide. And it's like, okay, but what information are we getting from your like little detective work that's going on? Like that kind of threw me off a little bit. And then halfway through the film, I'm kind of like, okay, well, which number one, I think it's an important theme as far as trauma is concerned and how like you pass trauma off to other people and stuff like that. Certainly from parents to kids and all that kind of stuff. And that is an interesting thing to explore in a film. It's just halfway through, I was like, all right, let's just have her face her trauma. That's obviously what we need to do here, and see if we can kill this monster. It did switch that at the end, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm surprised by that. I thought it was definitely going to be, the trauma kind of resolution at the end or whatever to defeat this thing. So, I mean, that was okay, but I just felt that. We just got to the point where, she goes back to her old home. And that's, I mean, it happened in Skyfall when James Bond goes back to his old home. And that's fucking cool. I was like, wow, that's really clever. That's a cool idea. And the fact that they use it in this film, I still think is a clever idea. But, at this point in this stage of the game, as far as the housing market's concerned, and I hate to bring these kind of practical things into just fictional storytelling. I mean, and I'm not like that. I love, what do you call it? What's the third Batman film? Why can't I? It's not The Dark Knight. Oh, yeah, it is. The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, I know a lot of people have just rational problems with that, but I think the ideas are real solid, and I'm just looking at the ideas, and I think it's good. This is the same thing where it's the idea of going back to your old home, and Jesus, man. It's a zoo out there. Going back to your old home and trying to like deal with this traumatic event and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, fine, but it's hard to dismiss. Like, really, the house wasn't transferred to her name, and she wasn't able to do something with it. It's just this old fucking home in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's like I absolutely did not believe that. And like, you're telling me that they didn't sell it and. They tore it down, put some fucking condos up or something. I mean, so, but anyway, I mean, and then it's, and the way that the house is in the interior, I don't know, that it was a stretch. It didn't take me out of the film at all, by the way. I mean, it's worth it. That is kind of where the story's going. So it's certainly kind of worth it to write that. My biggest problem was like the detective element of the whole thing. I'm kind of like, we're not really discovering anything. This isn't Zodiac. This isn't All the President's Men or something like that. It's not a detective film. I understand that, like, if you're going through the mental illness stuff, perhaps you hit a wall there writing wise, and you're kind of like, well, how deep do we go with this kind of thing without getting to a resolution? So I understand that aspect of it too. But like, every person that she went to, like, oh, this person died, and it's like we just got no information out of that until she gets to the prisoner. And I thought that was interesting, as far as like, having to kill somebody in front of this thing and have it pass on and stuff like that. And then it also went in an interesting direction where she goes back to the hospital, but it's a dream, and it had a sense of humor, in that scene, which I thought was, I guess it's, a bit of relief. Certainly it's not as well composed as somebody like David Lynch would do or something like that, as far as a real comedic relief of the tension that's going on, and then back to this kind of like abstract surreal kind of stuff. But it that does show some control as a director. But in the problem that I have is kind of a personal problem, and that is, in what fucking world is this movie? And I get it might be a little bit more mainstream of an idea, and like it's probably a little bit more marketable. Somebody just smiling. It kind of reminds you of It Follows as far as the trailer was concerned and stuff like that. But in what fucking world does this outperform Pearl? It just, there's no fucking, in my opinion, there's just no fucking way. The directing is way better. The idea is way better. The performances are, Mia Goth's performance is so much better. But again, that's like the economic, like, voting with your dollar kind of thing that sometimes I get into. Pearl's going to last way longer, I think, than Smile. I mean, the other problem with Smile, and perhaps look, maybe it's got some real longevity to it. 20 years from now, I doubt it, but perhaps it does. I don't know what culturally will be going on in 20 years that this might be the perfect film to represent their culture. I have no idea, but the thing that I can see is, as far as the way that the real popular filmmakers right now, especially in the horror genre, because a lot of filmmakers are working within this genre, and I think in a clever way, to kind of break into the industry or whatever. If you look at a movie like Hereditary or even The Witch, there just seems to be something underneath, that's sincere and of great substance. And even I'd throw Lady Bird in there and stuff like that. I mean, all that kind of stuff. There just seems to be a sincerity, and what I mean by that is not just horror films. There seems to be like a sincerity and like an auteur there. And with Smile, I don't necessarily think that's true. I mean, even with It Follows, you could kind of sense that this filmmaker was, very clever and had something to say. And I even like his second film, which is, what is it, Under the Silver Lake or something like that. I didn't mind it. I mean, it was worth a shot. It just didn't hit, and you just, as a filmmaker, that's just what's going to happen. Sometimes you think it's like, oh, this is going to put our culture into perspective. You really believe it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this is a fucking dud. No one liked it. Here I thought I had my finger on the pulse, you know what I mean? And then you fucking do something that's just supposed to be entertaining, and it's like the film of a generation or whatever, so a film that defines the generation. So anyway, I'm getting off track. Parker Finn did a good enough job, and he pulled out all the stops. It was like, oh, I'm going to do this sound design, and like this will be interesting. And it does keep you engaged, and like the happy birthday song, and then it kind of shifts into like this kind of like high pitched like sound. Like there's very good sound and clever sound design. But I mean, I've used this technique before myself. I mean, sometimes you're just using clever sound design without a necessary purpose, but it's going to keep the audience like engaged. You know what I mean? It certainly wasn't used as good as like the movie Tenet or something like that. And people, we couldn't hear the dialogue, whatever. Yeah. But like, the sound design of Tenet has a real meaning to it. You know what I mean? It's not just to, fucking keep you in the seat and hopefully you'll get to the end and give it a good review and blah, blah, blah. But as a first time filmmaker, you got to pull out all the stops, and I understand that. So I'm not degrading my score or anything as a result of that. And like I said, some of it was, very enjoyable. The other thing is like, it's like, okay, there's a couple upside down drone shots, and I'm kind of like, nah, I mean, we're seeing these drones used in a very similar fashion over and fucking over again in the same fucking way. And then, we try and do something different, and it's like, oh, well, her world's, I'm sure it was like, oh, her world, I'm so clever. Like her world is upside down now or whatever. And it's like, it still looks like a cheap fucking drone shot in my opinion, It really, truly, I mean, it's just like, I just didn't understand. I was like, it's just trying to be clever or trying to look good or unique. And in my opinion, like we keep using these overhead drone shots in the same way. That's like following just like above the car, going through fucking trees in this windy, like 2-lane road. And or we just turn it upside down or whatever. And look, I haven't used a drone in a unique way myself. So like, it's obviously something that is going to take some more imagination to really use the drone. I mean, I saw this short film that was all a drone. I think it's called like Cul-de-sac, but it was a film that takes place in a cul-de-sac in a short film, and like the drone was all over the place, like going to each character and stuff like that. And that was like, oh wow, okay, like this is how to use this technology, because like it's obviously smaller than a helicopter, which was the traditional way to do aerial shots, before the drone was in use. And now, because it's smaller than a helicopter, I mean, you should be able to do some fucking interesting shit with it outside of just turning the camera upside down. So anyway, man, I don't know, man. I'll tell you. And some of it just looked like, oh God, we have to go through this. Like, the creature design was pretty cool, but then it's like, and I thought it was a pretty cool shot when she opens her mouth and it starts going like into her or whatever. It reminded me of Annihilation though, and that was the only thing that I was like, oh, maybe you never saw Annihilation, or maybe he was saying thank you to Annihilation. I don't know. You'd have to ask him, but I'm gonna give this a 6.9.